Today we have Dan Herlihy, longtime assistive technology resource specialist and national and international presenter for many, many years. So we're excited to have him here today to provide some clarity on PDF accessibility. All right, Dan, I'll let you take it away.
All right. Welcome to the show. Yes, we have quite a wide range of participants today, and I know everybody's going to have different needs and different coming for a different reason. I have quite a few things I'm going to demonstrate, and then I'll have time at the end that we can start to open up discussion, especially when it comes to some of those specifics. I know one of our participants today, Alice Wershing, an esteemed colleague of mine for many, many years. She's worked at the collegiate level dealing with these issues, and I know she'll be a great resource for questions towards the end also. Let's get going. Dealing with image PDF files, or the text I see won't read aloud. And so we're dealing with PDF files that we can see on the screen, but aren't being read aloud by any of the screen readers or text-to-speech programs we're using. So the purpose of today is really to provide you with an understanding of the issues and possible solutions. So what are the issues we're dealing with these PDF files? What can we do about it? And ultimately, we want to provide students with a PDF file that can be read aloud using text-to-speech with minimal effort on their part. And that's a key theme that I'm going to echo throughout the thing, minimal effort on their part, because we tend to look at accessibility from our perspective when we're looking to create access, because we may look and go, oh, look, if we do this, and we hold up the antenna like this, and we open it like this, I can get it to do something. And the student with a disability will have no problem replicating all that, right? And so we want to kind of keep all those things in mind of, just because we can use all these tools in conjunction with each other does not mean the students that we are creating all this accessibility for can do that, okay? The goals for the session are understanding the issues of dealing with image PDF files, analyzing the impact of technical versus adaptive change focusing when providing solutions. Technical solution means just tell me what I need to be using. For example, here's a screen reader. It runs in the Chrome browser. There you go. Okay, I open up things and it works. It works for this student, but it doesn't do what I need here. And then documents in another classroom, it doesn't work at all with. And then we got to find something else. And so we're looking at a technical solution. Just tell me and fix it. An adaptive change is when we start to look at it a little more systemic, and we start saying, wait a minute, what's the larger issue here? The larger issue is we're not getting the curriculum in accessible format. And by that, it doesn't mean accessible format for some kids, but more accessible format no matter where I open it up in. JAWS can read it. I can use the screen reader that I'm using in this program. It can read it. The images have all text tagged to them, so students with visual impairments know what the pictures are on the screen. We're talking about accessible, to a wide range, and so that is more of an adaptive change. And we're looking at it as a culture, like we shouldn't be getting these, whether it's a PDF file or other materials, in non-accessible format. Otherwise, we have 30 teachers spending 30 hours each trying to fix it for 30 kids, and it doesn't really work that way. And we're looking at the ability to review, select, and implement, if appropriate, solutions that fit your situation. And by that, I mean, sometimes you need a short-term technical solution while looking towards a better adaptive solution. So this will get going right away. And then we start to look at it from a school-wide level and go, you know what, we're going to purchase a site license for this, or we realize we just need to go talk to the publisher and get the curriculum in a different format, or whatever it may be, okay? So essential questions that you want to consider and think about yourself as you go through here. What's the impact to you when dealing with PDF files that are not accessible by text-to-speech programs, okay? Think about you as an educator, all the things you need to do. Here's a student who needs access. What are you doing just to get there, right? How are students affected when they do not have text-to-speech access when they need it? And here's the big thing. This is more that adaptive change focus. Whose responsibility is it to provide accessible curriculum materials? Is it from wherever the PDF files are coming from? For example, a curriculum company, teachers pay teachers, all these free things online, is curriculum coordinators responsible before we even get the materials? Is the district coordinators? Are the teachers responsible? And the OTs, the SLPs? We know from this list who's having to do it all right now. The teachers, the OTs, the SLPs, right? At that level, you're doing it. But that's that technical, I'm doing it for that one student. And think about all the wasted hours when we're looking at it from that perspective. So think about where we're getting our PDF files from. How come we're not getting them accessible to begin with, okay? An image PDF file versus a searchable PDF. Can you tell the difference? One of these things is not like the other. So we have two files. They're exactly the same. One of them is a image PDF file, and the other one is what they call searchable, meaning if you took your cursor, you could select the text on the screen. If you had a screen reader, it'll read aloud the text that's there. I could type on it, things like that. The other one is a image. And so by that, I mean, if you took your camera, took your phone, and you just went and snapped a picture of the worksheet, and it was just a JPEG, and you said, oh, look, here it is. It would look just like this, and it actually would act just like this, because it's not going to be read aloud, and depending on what you're using, until you get down to the level of, yes, I know my iPhone now will read aloud, the text. But we're talking about, worksheets and pages and books and things like that here. The problem is a lot of apps, especially for like the iPad, for your phones, they have what are called PDF creators. You take a picture of it, it saves it as a PDF, and we're used to thinking of a PDF file as something that we can select the text, we can add a text box on, all that kind of stuff. But it's really a photograph. And so what they've done is, and that's why they're cheap. Those apps are like $2.99, $3.99, $4.99. Snap to PDF. Well, it's just taking a picture, taking that picture in a sense and putting it inside a PDF file. The same way if you had a PDF file with a story in it and then there's a little drawing to go along with it. Well, the whole file is that. It's just one big picture. So screen readers can't read it aloud. And so what can we do about it? Like I said, a searchable PDF, you can take your cursor, you can select text, you could copy it, you could search it. If I open it up, for example, in an Adobe Reader, it's a free version, I can click on that little magnifying glass up in the upper right for searching, type in a keyword or a phrase or even a sentence or a paragraph, and find out, for example, octopus. This document is 20 pages long. What pages has the word octopus on it? And it'll search through and tell me that. You might not think very much of that when you've got a one-page document, but what happens when the student's in high school and he's got a book that's 200 pages long or something like that, okay? You need to start to think, once again, systemically instead of just, well, I get it fixed for here. Well, why don't we get it fixed at this level for everybody, okay? The issues with image PDF files, it's the text-to-speech programs cannot read it. They only see a picture, okay? The reading order of the content on the page may be incorrect. Think of a document that has multiple columns. It's got maybe a title at the top and a couple columns, and we're going to look at some of this. And it starts to read, and then jumps over to column 2 and reads that, and jumps over to column 1, it reads that, and then jumps down to the bottom of the page and it reads copyright. Then it jumps back. So it's like, whoa, what's happening here? And the student doesn't know what's going on, is trying to click stop and trying to get things to be read aloud, okay? There's no text boxes there to begin with to type in it. We can create PDF files with think of the forms that we download sometimes where you click in the form and you go ahead and type, okay? And images may not have all text embedded. So you see the photograph or image or drawing, whatever it is, but something like JAWS, programs like that, just see it as a blank. You're not going to get any information of what it is. So some of the issues we deal with. There are a lot of programs that will convert an image PDF file using OCR, and some of them are paid and some of them are free. And everything I'm showing you here today is in the handout and with a little description on it. We're going to look at two different programs to begin with. One is Adobe Acrobat Pro. This is a paid subscription program. I have an older version of it. I also have some screenshots of what today's version looks like. Next year, to Acrobat 2004, the menu is going to look different anyway. So you just need to look at what are the features we're looking at here. And an online program called OCR2Edit. It's just an online program. It's free. You upload your file, you tell it to run OCR, scan it, and you download it, and that's it. It's just kind of looping it up and down. So let's take a look at what it looks like to take an image PDF file, doesn't matter where it came from, and make it searchable so I can open it up in something else and have it read aloud. I'll start with OCR2Edit because it's quick and easy. The free version, you can convert up to 3 files per hour if you just go to the website and use it. I didn't create a login or anything like that. If you have an EDU account, like your school account, email address rather, you can go and create a login, and it's free to use. Otherwise, it's like, I want to say like $6.99 a month or something like that. I'm going to scroll down. Here are the tools that they have. Scanned image to text. I can explore all the tools. PDF to text. And let me just move some of these windows around. Here we go. Make PDF searchable. I'm going to choose that. I'm going to choose my file. I'm going to open up. This is a worksheet that we're going to look at shortly. This is just an image PDF. So I open it up in the program. Let me scroll my window. You can see it's uploading it. When it's done, I'm just going to scroll down, tell it to start. When it finishes, all I'm going to do is download it. I'm going to click Download Selected. I can upload it to Dropbox. I can also upload to Google Drive. Okay, and here it is. And so it was an image PDF, and now you notice I'm just in Adobe Reader, just the free version of Adobe Reader, and I can select everything, which means I can open it up. And let's take a look at that. If I were to open it up in, for example, the Edge web browser, and here is what I had just done. Okay, here's the worksheet. Page 2. I'm opened it in Edge. I'm going to click Read Aloud.
Name _ mature selective assigned scattered residence generosity.
Okay, and now it reads it aloud. Let's scroll down to the next page. Let me turn up my volume a little for you.
How do you know if a file is just an image PDF? Is it labeled differently in the file extension?
No, it's not. And that's the hard part, because all those apps on the iPad that go scan to PDF, save it as a PDF file, you think it's going to look just like this, where I can select it. The file name is exactly the same because it is a PDF file. It's just that what you're seeing is an image that was embedded in it. And so there's no way by looking at the extension or the file name, whether it's an image PDF or a searchable PDF. So what I've done here in Edge, I just selected some text and I said, continue to read aloud from
He
here.
peeks out from his spiral shell while sailing on a backward trip.
What I was able to do was I used OCR to edit. I took what was originally an image PDF file. I couldn't select anything in there. Open it, uploaded it to there, ran OCR, downloaded it back to my computer, and now I can open it up in any program I want. Adobe Acrobat Pro, this is the paid version of Adobe Acrobat, will do the same thing. If I were to take my cursor right now, you notice on the upper left, you can see my cursor is a pointer. As soon as I move it into the screen, it turns into a little crosshair, which means there's no text to select. It sees this as just an image. And so I'm going to go up to the document and I'm going to go to OCR text recognition. And in the next PowerPoint slide, I'll show you what it looks like in the newer version of Acrobat, but it does the exact same thing. OCR text recognition, recognize text using OCR. I want to do the entire document. And I just wait for it to run. It's on the second page. And now it's done. And look, now I can take my cursor. First of all, you notice that, oh, my pointer's there, not a little crosshair. I can go and select text. If I were to open it up, I can actually do some searching if I needed to, text within the document. Screen readers will be able to select the text and read it aloud because it's all selectable. So now all I have to do is file and save it. So Adobe Acrobat Professional will take an image PDF and save it as a searchable PDF. A little expensive if that's all you're going to do, though, because if I'm not mistaken, the licenses, it's in your handout. I want to say like $199 a year, something like that. But it's something we can do. So I'm going to close this out. So we looked at two different programs, one free, just an online one, which you could log into from a Mac PC, your Chromebook, whatever. You upload your image PDF, run OCR for free, and download it. You can do 3 per hour, or you can get a teacher account and do as many documents as you want for free. Or you can just simply get a paid account and do the same. Or Adobe Acrobat Pro. In the newer version of Acrobat Pro, you just choose the Convert menu. You go down, you choose Scan and OCR, and then you tell it this file. And it does what you just saw me do in the older version, okay? Once you make it searchable, the question becomes, what are you going to do with it? What do you want to open it in? Where will you open it so it can be read aloud? And remember, we talked about reading order. We're going to look at that in a moment. Open it where I can type on so I can answer the questions. Where am I going to open it? Where I can save or print it. Okay, because now I get the file and I need to do something with it. The student needs to open in something. What is it you need it to do? Let's take a look using the searchable PDF that I had created using the Edge browser. I can have it read aloud.
He doesn't seem to know too well.
I can also type on it in Edge because I have some typing tools here. I can add text if I need to. So I'm going to click on the text tool and I can go ahead and type. And this is Czechoslovakian, so you probably can't read it right now. So anyway, and then I can bring up Read Aloud again, turn off the tool, and have more things. So here I've got OCR to edit. It converted my document for free. I opened it in the Edge browser. It's reading it aloud for free, allowing me to type on it, and then I can save or print it from here also. Pretty simple solution if that's something you're using, okay? And like I said, I have quite a few different solutions. I'm going to show you what you choose is what works for you. I wouldn't say this is the best and this is the one you want to use over the other. This is what's here, what works in your district. We got it reading in a searchable. We use that Acrobat Pro, but what about that reading order? What happens when we deal with documents that have multiple columns? And let's take a look at a document such as a newsletter. This was a newsletter that I grabbed, and I'm going to show you just because it has kind of a little of everything you can imagine in a document. It has images, it has title up at the top, paragraph on the left. We have multiple columns here. And if I were to go to looking at the reading order, I'm going to go advanced, touch up reading order here. And like I said, this is an older version of Acrobat. The newer version does the exact same thing. Here's one that I'd fixed. So if we take a look at the reading order, it will read Special Education Technology Center first. It goes over where it says number 2, empowering inclusive learning. Then it'll go down to the next paragraph, read there, then paragraph 4. Let me scroll down so you can see it. accessible assignments, then the paragraph below it goes up to column 2, read it. Okay. This is what it looks like when I fixed it. And this is what it looked like before. So take a look at the reading order. It read the heading 10th. Well, wait a minute, what's it reading first? So I'm going to scroll around the document, and you know what it ended up reading first? Way at the bottom of the page. Okay, and I can see, oh, wait a minute, it's going to read this 11th, this 21st, this 12th, 13th, 19th. It's going to go 12, 13, 14, and then it's going to jump somewhere else in the document and start reading. So imagine someone hitting read, for example, in Edge or using JAWS or something else, and it's just going to start bopping all over the page to read. So this is what's called the reading order. And there's a couple of different ways I can fix it. Here's a toolbar I have. I can show the order panel. And now I can look and go, well, let's see, number 11. Let me scroll up the document so we can see it a little better. And I can see, well, I want to move this and move it up to here, and I can just drag on the right-hand side here. I'm just dragging these along and reordering what I need. So I can click, which is this. Here's number 11. Maybe I want to move it up to number 2, and so I'm just going to go ahead and drag it, and I'm going to start to change the reading order. And so the reading order of all this will shift around. Sometimes it's really, really bad, and what I'll do is clear the page structure altogether. It wipes out the reading order, and I start from scratch. And I'll scroll to the top of the page, and now I'm going to start dragging boxes around. And so I can use some tools to drag a box around. This is going to be number 1, tag it, number 2, number 3, deal with the images. And so I would do it manually. And sometimes I'm doing that depending on how this document was created. This was created in Canva. And you can see what a terrible job it did with the reading order. And also the images weren't tagged. And so, and there were overlapping zones in a sense. So it took a bit of fixing for me to fix this. And this is using Adobe Acrobat to fix the reading order. Let's take I have another sample worksheet we'll take a look at in just a moment. This is from an actual vocabulary workbook page. Let me shrink it down so you can see more of it. Take a wild guess what the reading order looked like on something like this. Give you a moment to look around, imagine where, well, guess what? When I go to the tools and I want to take a look at the reading order, you know what it sees? There is none. If I show the order panel, there is none. It starts reading wherever up here, and it's just going to jump around all over the place. Okay, when this document was created, there was no reading order at all. If you take a really good look at it, a lot of this text that we see as text, some programs are going to look at as artwork or drawings because of the way it's. What do you think of the text on the left-hand side of the page? Can you imagine, some screen readers looking at that and going, what? Okay. And documents like this are a nightmare when you start to deal with reading order. If you're using the newer version of Acrobat Pro, on the menu on the far right, when you open up a document, it looks like a little Z and like kind of connected dots there where my red arrow is pointing. You click on that and it brings up the screen that we're looking at here, just like it did in the version that I brought up. And then you can go ahead and adjust the reading order, similar to what I had just done there. So let's take a look at some free, paid, and combinations. I had this image PDF. We took a look at a couple different ways, a free and a paid version of turning it into a searchable PDF. We looked at it in the Edge browser. It's like, okay, now we can select text and it can be read aloud. We looked at Adobe Acrobat and saw that, I can change the order how it's read. Let's take a look at what I might be using in the classroom for having some of this read aloud. So we're going to look at 3 different programs, actually 2 right now. We've looked at the Edge browser, and I demonstrated, excuse me, having it read aloud and also using their text tool to be able to go ahead and type on it. We're going to look at Kami in Orbit Note. We'll talk about the free and paid versions, and then we'll talk a little bit about some combinations. What happens if I use the free version of this and it does this, but I also need it to do this? Well, I can get a free extension to do this, or I can get the paid version, which has this and this built into it, or I can get this. And I know sometimes you're mixing and matching in the classrooms because we have no budget, or I can purchase this, but I can't purchase the full version because it's too expensive, or I'm just getting it for this one student, or it has to be free to begin with. So we'll take a look at some of these. So I'm going to go over to the Chrome browser, but most of these will work in pretty much quite other browsers. This is Kami. This is the free version of Kami. It's right now I'm running it in the Chrome web browser. I launched Kami, and you see I can open up files from many different areas. And let me get, where's that crosshair coming from? There we go. I can open up files from Google Drive, OneDrive, my computer, things that I've saved in Kami. Okay, so I'm going to open up, and this is the free version of Kami. I'm going to open up that worksheet that I use OCR to edit, save that image file, now scanned it, and now it's searchable. So I'm going to open it up in Kami, take a look at what Kami can do. So you see it's text is selectable here. I can scroll down. Here's my text, and I need to type on it. So the free version of Kami are all the things you can see in bold here: markup, comment, text box, draw, shapes. The dictionary and read aloud come in the paid version. Okay, so all right, I can use something like Read Aloud, the free Read Aloud extension, to select my text in Kami and have it read aloud.
He peeks out from his spiral shell.
And then I can use the text tools in Kami and go ahead and type my answers on the line and save it. So here I'm using a free version of Kami to be able to open it up and mark it up. And I'm using a free screen reader, okay, free Chrome extension to do the reading for me. Okay. The nice thing about the free version of Kami, though, and I have this in your handout, is if you simply open up an image file, an image PDF in Kami, it will automatically run OCR on it for you and convert it. So it's like, oh, wait a minute, I don't need Adobe Acrobat and I don't need OCR to edit. I can just upload the file into here, it'll convert it. I can get a free Chrome extension to do the reading for me, and I can use the tools in Kami to type on it and draw and things like that. Okay, so here's one kind of sample idea of what you can do using Kami. And then if I get the paid version of Kami, everything's integrated. It'll convert it from an image PDF to a searchable PDF. It'll have a dictionary. It'll have text-to-speech integrated in. And then I have other tools in it, for example, adding media and things like that. Okay. So this is Kami. We can look at bringing the same file into Orbit Note. Okay. The free version of Orbit Note, I can have it read aloud, but I need to have it converted before I bring it in. Okay. I need to use, well, I can use OCR to edit to convert it for me, and I can bring it in. And then I have text-to-speech. I can go ahead and type on it. So I've got, select my text.
A. Write each word next to its definition.
Okay, I'm going to stop the reading, go ahead and grab the text tool and come over and go ahead and, did I get it? There we go. And type, I want to type on the line. There we go. And I can move it around. The free version of Orbit Note, if I have already run OCR on it using something else, I can bring it in here. I have text to speech. I have other tools to go ahead and write on it and draw and type on it. Okay.
Does Kami do a better job of determining the reading order?
The reading order depends on the program that was used to create it. Because remember that newsletter that we looked at earlier that was created in Canva? It creates the reading order depending on the order that you put the elements in there. So if you kind of delete things and put other things in, the reading order becomes kind of what you saw. Most of the documents that look like this are fairly straightforward. It's going to look at this and read this first, go to the bottom, read that second. It's really some of those documents that have multiple columns, images embedded within the documents that it has a difficulty with. Also, I'm going to scroll to the top so you can see this. See this gray up the top here? This probably was copied somewhere. And if you start to look, see the lines, you know, it might have been copied or scanned. And so when it finally got here, the programs have a, you know, it's kind of like those purple dittos when from yesteryear that were copied and copied and copied, and you start to fade. Then the programs have a hard time kind of scanning them and differentiating, is that a picture or is that a word? But I haven't really noticed which one does a better job with reading order. And unfortunately, with either of these programs, you cannot change the reading order. And that's, you know, if that's something you have to do, you look on the handout, and I showed you Fox Edit, Adobe Acrobat Pro, and I'm trying to think if there were one other program that allowed you to change the reading order. Here's a free version of Orbit Note, and once again, I'm kind of combining pieces to do something. The paid version of Orbit Note, if I bring it in, I can scan the text. I can bring in an image PDF, it'll scan it for me, and then I have all these other tools. So free version of Kami, I need a couple pieces to do everything I need if I need text to speech. Free version of Orbit Note, the same thing. Paid version of Kami, everything I need. It, you know, plus Kami will convert the image PDF for me. Paid version of Orbit Note, it'll convert the PDF for me. Here's all my text tools, you know, tools to read aloud, dictionaries, things like that. Okay.
I wanted to mention a couple other things. One being that sometimes readers will read a line where they're supposed to write something as underscore, 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 and the kid doesn't need to hear that. That's frustrating. And then also with both Kami and Orbit Note, don't you have to select what you're going to be reading? And so it's dependent on the student selecting it, then it'll read it. Sometimes then it keeps reading it, and then the reading order comes into, it becomes a factor. But for the most part, they're selecting and listening, and then.
Right.
Okay.
If I go to read, see, if I just hit read, where's it going to start? You know, the difficulty with most of these programs is I want to put the cursor here, you know, and so instead of the cursor being there, the way we see it in a Microsoft Word document, or even that in that PDF file, I can't just pop the cursor here and say, tell it to read from there. It's like a lot of them have an option of select some text, you know, do a right click and say read from here, or select some text and hit the read button, and it will start reading from there. But once again, like as Kristen pointed out, the student has to be able to select the text, know that's what they need to do, and then kind of initiate that, instead of intuitively click here and start reading from here. And this becomes how many clicks for the student to get it to do what he needs it to do. Do they need to, let me go back to Kami for just a moment. It's a little more straightforward. I'm going to choose select tool. And this is no different than, for example, in the Edge browser. Here, I've got to select the text I want to do. So I've got to be pretty good with my mouse or my trackpad, right? Then I have to go up and I have to select the extension in the browser.
He peeks out from his spiral shell while sailing on a backward trip.
Then I have to tell it to stop, and I have to close that out and click back into the document. Look at all the steps I have to do to get it to do just that. How about coming down and reading this? And, some of the programs, it'll start to read, and it doesn't stop at the end. It goes to the next question. And then I've got to click my cursor, get my cursor, go to the stop button, and come back down to where I left off. And that becomes a difficulty also, because I'm tracking here. I got to go up to here, stop reading, and now I'm hearing what's being read aloud somewhere else. Another issue with reading is, for example, here it says write each word next to its definition. It's going to start reading, but what doesn't the text-to-speech program find at the end of the line? It doesn't see a period. So if you had, for example, some programs you can set to read sentence, read paragraph. Kurzweil 3000 is a program like that where you can set an option to read a sentence and stop. Well, it would start reading here, and guess what? It's not going to stop until it gets to number 2, because it doesn't see punctuation at the end of the line here. Okay, so think about all the different things, and this becomes that what I mentioned earlier. I've created accessibility. Look, I brought it into Kami. It took that image PDF and it ran OCR, and it can be selected now. And I have an extension that'll read it aloud. But I'm working with a student who has to do what just to get access to this. And so you start to look at, do I go all in and buy, the paid version of this or the paid version of this, or do I get some integrated program where I can bring the documents in and all the tools are right there to read, write, type, enlarge the font, all kinds of things like that. Okay.
And this is what becomes important when advocating to those making the decisions about the tools, is that cognitive load and the motor demands related to the student having accessibility, and advocating for some of the paid tools that have the toolbar right there, and they're not having multiple clicks and navigating as much.
So here's a good example. See the paragraph with the Nautilus? Do you see the image here? What if this were a graphic novel? How many kids are reading graphic novels these days? What if you get the graphic novel as a text file, as some kind of file like a PDF file? What would not be being read aloud right now? There's no information on the image at all, right? And graphic novels have text here, here, and here, really sometimes like comic book style. What's the reading order there, right? And what information are they not going to get from the images unless I took it and brought it into another program and tagged those images? Okay, so we start to think about not just something simple like this, like a worksheet, but other kinds of things like that. So we looked at Kami, the free and paid, the free and paid version, Orbit Note free and paid version. SnapType Pro is an iPad app. It allows you to either import image PDFs or searchable PDFs. It will read it aloud. It allows you to type on the document and save with your annotations. The problem is, if you, for example, took a picture of a worksheet page and you bring it in, it will read it, but it's not doing what OCR2Edit or Acrobat or even Kami or Orbit Note are doing, which is running that OCR. And then when I save it, I could distribute that document, that PDF file now, that is now a searchable PDF to anybody, and it stays a searchable PDF. What SnapType Pro does, I should have put the number 2 next to it here. It's in your handout as version SnapType Pro2. It takes that image and it kind of looks at it, it sees the text, processes it, brings up a layer on top of the image, and it'll read it aloud. But if you go and save the document, it only saves the annotations you put on it, and it still stays an image file. So it's not like I can go, oh, I'm going to use SnapType Pro, get all my documents in it, and then, save them all. And now they're searchable PDFs. It really is kind of use in the moment kind of thing. Okay. Before I move on and show you something else, these are the things to think about even with what I just showed you. Okay. How many steps to open, read, and type? Okay. To get for the student to, even if I've created a searchable file, how do I open that document, and how many tools do I have to use because I need it to be, for example, read aloud? What's the time element involved of me doing that scanning, saving it somewhere else, getting it open for the kid, having to make sure they've got all the toolbars? What's the cognitive load balance for the students dealing with, I got to click here to be able to type. I have to select here and click here to be able to listen to it read aloud. Okay. Or maybe the student has to, I got to click here and go into here to open it up and find it and then bring it into here and then wait for it to do this. And then, it's like, we're talking about, for example, some of these the student already has disabilities they're dealing with, and look at the cognitive load balance for dealing with all of these tools. And I put this one here, the self-esteem, everyone else is halfway done and they're just getting the document up and they're just getting access to all of this, okay? And also, what's the motor impact involved when needing to highlight or draw a box around the text to read? Take your cursor from a trackpad and try to, on some of those multiple column documents, try to get the box perfectly, drag and draw a box around that column, click the read button and have it just read this. It's like, whoops, I didn't get it all. Oops, I got some of the other column. Oops, it's reading some of the words over there. Oops, it's cutting off the top. I didn't get it, everything involved for that student just to have access to that document, okay? So there are programs capable of selecting text in an image file and reading on the fly, okay? Kind of like what I said with SnapType Pro. There's Screenshot Reader, and I'm going to demonstrate that in a moment. Image Reader, it's a component of Kurzweil 3000, Snap and Read, and Selective Speech. They all do the exact same thing. So I'm just going to demonstrate Screenshot Reader. What these do is I could use that image PDF and just select text and have it read aloud. And it looks like this. Let me get back to the Chrome browser. And let me come over and open up a document. So let's take a look at this wild and scary worksheet that we were looking at before, okay? So I just have it opened in the Chrome browser. I don't have it open in any particular program. Imagine I'm opening it up in, like Adobe Reader or something. And one of the extensions I have here is Screenshot Reader, part of the Read and Write toolbar. I'm going to click on it. My cursor turns to a little X, and I'm going to put the cursor up by where it says name so you can see it. Okay. And now all I do is draw a box around what I want read aloud, let go, it processes it. And once it's processed, it'll read it aloud. And it may take a second here. I got about 6 applications. There we go.
Abundant means a lot of something, often more of something than you need.
Okay. So whether you're using this image reader from Kurzweil 3000, if using Select to Speak, just that from the accessibility features on Chromebooks, this is what it does. You activate the feature, turns to a crosshair, you drag a box around what you want it to read, let it process, and then it reads it aloud. Okay, so this
Daily academic vocabulary.
Okay, now the problem is here, great, I didn't have to bother converting it from an image PDF to searchable PDF, but all it's doing is reading. What happens if I need to write on it too? So it's like, oh yeah, well, maybe all you need is it read aloud. So it becomes a good solution, right? Maybe this is a chapter from Tale of Two Cities, and it's pretty straightforward. Just drag a box around the page, let it read the page, turn the next page, drag a box around the page, let it read the next page. If I'm on a Chromebook, The reason I'm not going to demonstrate, first of all, on a laptop, but I could connect my Chromebook so you could see it. Select to speak on a Chromebook, it works the same way. You draw a box. Sometimes it's funky. It'll start to read, it'll stop. Sometimes it'll continue to read when it's reading things I didn't select. Sometimes it'll read across. Sometimes it'll, stop halfway through a sentence. It's a little tricky to get the box drawn around where I want it to read. I've run into all kinds of little anomalies with it. And so I kind of put it last on the list, because even if you're using that to speak, where are you going to bring it into so I can type on it and all those other things also? And you can say, well, I can bring it into Edge. Well, Edge will read it, and Edge, I can type on it. Well, I could bring it into Kami. Yep. And I can use the free version of Kami and then use that as something to read the text on it. So you start to see how piecemeal this can get, and who's dealing with this, all of you in the session here probably, because no one's taking care of these issues at a systemic level. So that's what selecting text in the image file on the fly without needing to create a searchable PDF, and the programs that will do it. Okay. And like I said, they're in your handout with the links and everything. Okay. Many files allow you to save files as a PDF from a text file. Okay. You open up something in Google Docs, you choose File, Download, and then for the file format, you choose PDF, and it'll save it as a PDF. In Microsoft Word, you open up your file, you choose Save As, you click the little drop-down menu, and just below where you name the file, and before choosing Save, you get a whole list of formats you can save it as, and you save PDF as the format. Microsoft has what's called Print to PDF. For example, from the Chrome browser, I'm on a laptop, I can open up, or from the Edge browser, I can open up a web page, and I can actually print the entire web page as a PDF file. So I can open up other things into it and choose File in the upper right, Print, and then choose instead of printing to my physical printer, click and get a list of printers, and one will be Microsoft Print to PDF. And so there's multiple ways to save text files as a PDF. Why would I want to bother saving a text file as a PDF? Because the kids won't delete it. Okay, the kids won't, if they go to type on it, it's not going to move the text around. Maybe I've put some text boxes in it. When I worked in the classroom, I worked with kids that would have gone, select, delete, Mr. Hurley, I don't know where it went. I didn't do anything and it's all gone. So, one way to do that, save it as a PDF or something like that. Okay. Circling back to technical versus adaptive change. Okay. Technical is looking for the quick fix. I just give me an extension that I can use right now. Okay. For this student. Okay. It works sometimes depending on your tech department. And I know there are tech people here in the webinar. They won't let me, install the extension. I've got it only on this laptop I can put it on. Okay. I got to get a searchable PDF. I got to use something else to do that. And then I can go and bring it into here. What are the other classrooms doing? Why, we need to start looking at things from an adaptive solution where we're not accepting PDF files that aren't searchable to begin with. We're not taking worksheets that don't have any reading order, in them. We're going to textbook publishers and saying, if we're going to buy print, it's like we need electronic files also. And then if you start to use your own, because every teacher is going to go, well, I use this to supplement. I do a whale unit, or I do something on this, or we do something on, volcanoes, and I found some stuff. The other classrooms doing it. If you're, for example, a fourth grade teacher, is everybody doing that? Well, why don't I create a searchable PDF to share it with everybody? We tend to work in that kind of egg carton type idea of, I'm dealing with my things, and so are you, and so are you, and so are you. So we just spent 5 man-hours converting these files when we could have spent 1 man-hour converting it and sharing it with everybody, and taking turns. And this is working with administration from the top down instead of just you and one other teacher. So it's kind of looking at, the needs of all versus the needs of one. And like I said, sometimes you need to deal with Orbit Note. It does it, it brings it all in. There we go,
So Dan, there's a question in the chat that sounds right up your alley. Is there a chart anywhere that lists all tools and their features side by side, like a side-by-side comparison?
This sounds like the chart you and I started to do with
Yes.
all of the learning management systems
Yeah.
and all the features that dealt with text-to-speech and all this stuff side by side. That'd be an interesting one to do and do a follow-up webinar on comparisons and things like that. In issues, because Kristen and I looked at, I got a searchable PDF, I need it read aloud. What does it look like if I bring it into Seesaw? What does it look like if I bring it into Canvas? What does it look like if I bring it into, and we kind of look at all the different LMSs, what tools are there, what tools do I need, and will those tools actually work in the learning management system? Okay. So think about, where are you getting your PDF files from? Okay. Do you have to download, import, and fix them and save them? Why aren't they accessible? Are we really asking, for example, I'm using this example because a lot of you will have heard of it. What if everything you downloaded from Teachers Pay Teaches was an image PDF? Are we kind of writing and saying, hey, we shouldn't have to be downloading them, fixing them, especially if from one teacher to another? We should be saying, writing to Teachers Pay Teachers and say, hey, before they post them, make sure they're searchable PDFs if it's a PDF file, okay? How much time is being spent having to make them accessible and searchable? Can the work be collaborative? Only working with searchable PDF files will negate a lot of the work we're doing here, right? So where do you fit in and what issues are you bringing to the session? Because if it doesn't work for you, it's not a solution. So I know we're running tight on time. I thought I'd have a little more time, but comments in the chat, or people want to, Kristen, if you want to take some, unlock some of the microphones if people have questions.
So I think you guys can unlock, or
here's a good one. We've had some nice success with Adobe Scan and free Orbit Note. Remember, this is kind of like those combinations that I was talking about.
And then someone had texted me about Read Speaker, and that they recently announced that they have OCR capability, but that is a paid tool, and I couldn't locate the information on how much it costs.
It depends on your FYI, your faculty ratio, and it can be integrated into the LMS. We added it at the community college because it read math for all of it, and any student at our community college could use it, as long as the faculty knew it was there. That wasn't my department. My department was the students. So it gets integrated. It is an add-on, and it does provide an extension that you can use. So when we were doing testing in the testing center, I would upload the teacher's exam after I'd taken a look at it, and my students that just needed text-to-speech access would be able to use the text-to-speech engine. That was before we went to Office 365 and had immersive reader. So some students would choose to use the extension, some would choose to just read the exam. Some were writing on the exam, depending on their accommodation plan, and some were writing their answers on paper.
So now that you mentioned that, I'm remembering that Read Speaker was prominent, Dan, when we made that matrix, which we'll send out to you all on learning management systems and what's available as a reader. Many of them had that the district could add on Read Speaker as an option.
Yeah, and the irony was when they advertised it, for example, if you read the fine print, you had to pay extra for the reader component, some of these, it didn't come with it. You had to pay extra for them. So Alice, I have a question for you also. How much did you have to deal with PDF files to make them accessible for your students, especially because you're dealing with probably a little more complex documents than some of the things I've been showing here?
I spent the last 9 years in higher education after having been an assistive technology specialist in the K-12 space. And of course, the laws are different. The expectations of my job were different. And I was hired as a result of an Office of Civil Rights Resolution Agreement because there had been a complaint and it had gone through the Justice Department, and it was by a blind student, and they were not receiving PDFs that were accessible from the college. It was a lot of time spent. My first challenge was to make math accessible, and I'm still working on that. The other issue is you've addressed both the technical, the quick fixes, and so we were able to add things in when I was hired that made it easier for the students to get their books electronically if they had alternate format. And also, it made it easier for us to get a site license for Kurzweil. We chose Kurzweil because Kurzweil was more accessible to JAWS than Texthelp, and that's still true. Many of the tools that are in the AT space that you're showing today are going to be for a blind student or a visually impaired student. They are not going to be using these tools in the same way because they are not created accessibly. And the market, the people that are creating them, they are creating them for a different market level. However, that posed a problem for us because after the agreement, we also had a statewide mandate looking at procurement, and we're still under that. So how do you procure materials when you have a wide range of students? So if you put Texthelp on a campus server and everybody can get it, but the blind students can't use it, there's some inequity there. So we went with Kurzweil. There were still some issues with Kurzweil. Before I left, we were moving more into an open area of trying to, from the ed tech people, trying to move the faculty towards the process of creating accessible materials, procuring accessible materials. So when I first started, a lot of the materials I were getting were PDFs. And in higher ed, you go through the Georgia Tech system to get the books, or oftentimes if it was a small publisher. So adopting textbooks is a whole nother webinar. But, if it was a small publisher, we did have a graphic novel. I did make it accessible. It took some doing. It was that little learning book that they were using in an English class. And that was early on. So, the tools are changing. The tools are getting better and better. But before lockdown, a lot of what I was doing, I did not have a blind student. Fall of 2019, we had a blind student enroll. He was late blinded as a teen, did not really know JAWS, came from the school system, bought his own equipment. We spent a summer with him, getting him up to speed so he could read better. Really bright kid, really diligent, really wanted to do well. He's gone off to a 4-year school now. But when you're looking at PDF remediation, and it became clearer during lockdown, then oftentimes a teacher would have a particular third-party product from a publisher that had an online learning system. And that was set up so that the student price to the students from some of the access programs that the publishers called them were cheaper. So the textbook was in there, but it was not accessible. But the textbook wasn't required because the teacher made all of her PowerPoints accessible. But the other students could refer to that textbook if they needed to look up some other things. The only way my student could do that was if I spent time trying to pull that PDF apart. And at that point, I knew nothing about what I know now about remediation. The main thing that you want to think about is, as Dan mentioned, is talking with the publishers and doing as much diligent research as you can. The unfortunate thing is there are no guidelines that say that the publishers have to make their materials accessible except for our pocketbook buying. And I've had lots of conversations over the last 9 years. Benetech which is Bookshare, has a Born Accessible initiative. They have been working steadily with the publishers. They're working steadily with the books that are in Bookshare to make the math accessible. So again, you need to, like Dan said, ask, what kinds of documents are you getting? And then oftentimes if I got a document that I knew my student couldn't use, then it was, can you give me the source document? Oftentimes that was a Word document. A lot of that was in the biology STEM space with science materials. What you have to think about is accessing the curriculum, which is doing the materials that you're looking at here, and full access, full accessibility. So for a student that, in order to make our lives easier, we need those documents created accessibly and structurally soundly in the beginning. And my adventure from K-12 AT, years and years of that work, into access and creating accessible materials is a whole different journey and a whole different set of certifications that I've acquired and skills I've acquired and people that I've found that are doing this work. And looking for other tools, Canva will not create an accessible PDF. The people that I learned from at Accessibility Unraveled, it can't. And so I put in the chat something about Bengage, which I'm looking at because I have some contract jobs that need infographics. And a lot of the things that Dan was talking about in terms of the reading order, if you're able to open up that PDF in Acrobat and run the checker and fix what you can, oftentimes a lot of that will resolve. Not everything. And there are whole different document structures. If these people have used something like Adobe to create the document with no source document from Word, there are things you can't do in Word, like tables and different things and different layouts. But many people have gone to InDesign. I'm still learning InDesign. I'm going to spend some time with Engage, and I'm glad to hear that it is creating something that is a little bit more accessible on the end. And I learned about that from the folks at Accessibility Unraveled. My job, 40% of my job was to create access to the learning materials. And from the time I started to the time I left almost a year ago, things had changed, things were moving forward, but we still have a long way to go. And one concern I have is what happens for our students as they tend to move into the towards the post-secondary space when they're in middle school and high school, and you're no longer reading to learn, you're learning to read, you're reading to learn. And the ante goes way high, especially for our blind students. So document structure with headings, when you saw that one document with no reading order at all, that was created probably in a drawing program, I'm guessing, as opposed to trying to use something like Bengage, which I don't have enough experience. That's my weekly project this week. Or with trying to structure a document in Word and creating fillable form fields so that the form fields announced for a JAWS user or an NVDA user, looking at color contrast, all of the WCAG standards that we need to look at for the web are applicable for document accessibility. The International Association of Accessibility Professionals was started by Microsoft several years ago as a free organization and has moved forward. They're working globally as well as, so that's my core concept credential. And then I have the RESNA ATP. It's a constant learning process. I'm working on one particular contract on an inclusion and early childhood childcare project. And they already had a template in Word for their cover page, not accessible, because the person who designed it knows Word really well, but doesn't necessarily know how to use the ribbon. And I remember, Dan, you can remember way back when with Richard Wanderman in those Macintosh labs 100 years ago, nobody taught us how to think about using the ribbon. We were just actually wanting to make something that looked like what the other kids had. Yeah. And so, and then it became, okay, we made it. Now, how are they going to make it? How are they going to enter it? and how are they going to show what they know given their access needs? So it's been a real journey. But I don't know about the curriculum that you're looking at or where you're getting your materials from. I think this whole journey into creating accessible documents, which means that not just that you can highlight and read, but that anybody can get in there and do the same thing. And those kind of come from the WCAG, the WCAG 2.2 guidelines. That's totally different.
Yeah.
And I would argue that if you can, start this process of talking with whoever it is. I've worked with vendors where a vendor sent something to me, and of course, me being me, I ran it through Adobe, and their flyer wasn't accessible. And I got back, well, nobody's ever talked to us about that before. Now, this is a company, a vendor that's selling a product that we can use with our students. So there's still this journey to move away from, okay, we're going to make it accessible for this kid in this way and this kid in that way. But if we created, born accessible creates it for everybody. And having spent a lot of hours after hours when I was a classroom teacher and as an AT specialist, and certainly during lockdown, it was 24/7 for me during lockdown because I had biology. I had an English textbook that had footnotes, and it was a British English textbook. And so in the middle of the text, there would be a little degree sign. And then in the margin, there would be the pronunciation and the information about that. JAWS was a nightmare because it wasn't tagged properly. And so then I had to get a student worker to help me who knew how to pull out this footnotes, and then we got them fixed. But that was a full-time job.
Yeah. Thank you, Alice, for sharing, because you're bringing up so many important points that need the adaptive solutions. And so we have in Washington have some conversations going on at the state level, and then that holding publishers, holding people accountable to create accessible documents. I will also share with those who participated, we have a class we created at SETC called Accessible Content for All. And one of the sections is on creating accessible material and how do you do that in Word. And so there's some resources on that.